So, what's up, everybody? So, last week I put up a story prompt and you guys had fun with it and responded to it. So, I know I said I was going to pick one, but I liked you guys' responses so much that I'm going to do all of them. Here are the first three, and more will come over the weekend. Lies. People told them easily enough. Or maybe the mysterious window was magical, a strange, unexplainable thing. Everyone saw something different. Every person that wandered this way, for whatever reason, stared through the archway where the glass should have been and told their own tales about why it was there and what it was for. Let's call her T. She looked through and after a moment smiled. She turned and walked away shortly after, her steps quieter than when she'd come, as if she didn't want to disturb whatever it was she'd seen, or thought she'd seen. A hot sun beat down on the well-tended garden. The sound of horses, the clank of armor of their riders echoed over the chirp of birds and the warning squawks of crows. The gardener, used to the summers in his kingdom, let the sweat drip down his temple just to get caught in his beard. He stayed there all day, as was his job, tending to the grounds of a monarchy that had never shown their people a fraction of the affection he bestowed on their landscape. When dusk fell, he left his post, past the guard towers whose rotation he'd studied and memorized, past the finery of the castle, and into the squalor of the village below it. He navigated the dirty, foul-smelling streets with ease, and even though he was used to the stench, his sensitive nose still twitched at times. The shack she lived in always smelled sweeter, of her herbs and earth, the flowers he always brought her and the parchment she wrote on. Her poetry was inspiring, moving, but more than that, hidden within her words were instructions to their rebellion. She greeted him with a smile when he entered and a kiss to his sweat-stained lips. They embraced for a long time, the pull of their arms around one another tighter than usual because tonight they would free their kingdom or they would die trying. How does the story end? We don't know. It wasn't ours to see. Another, we'll call her A, came to this place for a moment of peace from the chaos of her mind. She circles the stone, humming, soaking up the energy of the moonlight, and touches the stone with reverence, with respect to the energy old things carry. She closes her eyes with her fingers against the ageless rock. It's a long moment before her eyes open again, carrying a thoughtful expression. She too smiles, then slips away, continuing her walk under the goddess's light. He didn't know if he wanted this, but his wants had never mattered in his life. He felt pulled by some invisible hand, guided by a force he did not understand but listened to regardless. His hands were dirty when they closed around the hilt of the blade embedded into the rock. No one had been able to pull it free, though many had tried. It was foolish, him standing there. A crowd stood around him, jeering, laughing. Men twice his side had tried and failed. Those that watched, they had no faith in him. The boy, Arturus, tightened his grip around the aged leather. For him, time stilled. The noise of the crowd a distant hum, the sound of his breath, the pounding of his heart louder in his ears. He exhaled and pulled the sword free. Light glinted off the blade for the first time in 1,000 years. The crowd was silenced, and for the first time in his life, Arturus felt powerful. The world shifts, darting across the landscape as if moving on the back of a ferry. We stop at a lake, a thin fog caressing the water's surface. A different man stands on its shores, his face weathered by the knowledge he carries. The lady of the lake knows he is there, and touches the surface of the water to make it ripple, beckoning him to speak. You must walk away from him, the man says quietly, understanding the weight of his words, the consequences they carry. There is silence. It ends with a flash of light bursting from the water, exploding across the land all the way to where Arturus stands triumphant. None see it but him, and for the first time he feels truly alone. Perhaps it is telling that he doesn't mind. There was another. We'll call him Jay. He wanders to this place with a pair of dark glasses shielding his eyes from the sun, a comic book in hand. He stops in front of the window, tilts his head to one side, and breaks into a grin. He remains standing there for another moment, laughing at times at whatever it is he sees. When he finally does leave, there's a proud gait to his step. A young writer throws open the office door. His confidence radiates off him. If he were a superhero, it would be his shield. The person behind the desk startles at the abrupt intrusion, but the young writer will not be deterred. He jumps onto the desk, heedless of papers, pens, or keybirds, and begins to tap dance. "You're going to write a story," he says, pointing at the person in the office chair who is staring up at him incredulously. "About a window in the middle of a beautiful field. But the most important part, it's gonna be about me." To be continued.